Hi, good evening to everybody. We have a very special guest, Mr. Vinod Nambiar, here with us today. It's also good to see that we're all back after examinations and we're back talks, which we continuously have been having since the COVID period. Introduce you Vinod Nambiar. He's a very special person. He's actually a very old friend now with us here to share with us his life journey. So he's done his chemical engineering from Pitspilani, and then he's moved on to IIM Calcutta, after which he had a stint with Unilever. He's done extensive work in various parts of India with various brands. Post which he spent with Colgate-Palmolive as VP and was 21 years with them, which was also with some international postings as well. So he's an individual who has actually spent vast amounts of time in various regions of India, as well as internationally. April 2020, amidst the pandemic, when it was at its peak, he moved to India to take on the challenging role of a managing director of more retail. So it takes a certain kind of resolve, strength, and courage to move during a pandemic, your entire and your job, and your location, and to move into a new position. Vinod has managed to do that. So today I present to you all Vinod Nambiar, my close friend and classmate. Vinod?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah.
I'm trying to present my slide. Is my slide visible to you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I won't go through that. Basically, I was asked to present some thoughts on leadership. So what I'm going to do is really talk through what I have learned over my last 30 years. And as this is not a textbook kind of thought, but is really lessons learned along the way over 31 years of corporate life. So I structure my talk today about 30-40 minutes. I'll talk through a few slides, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. So the first is I talk about some lessons of leadership, and these lessons have been learned along the way. The first thing that I say is that all our actions as people and our leadership actions need to be focused on driving growth. And growth is of two kinds. If you work for a business or you work for an institution, there is the growth of that business. So your leadership actions need to focus on business growth. And the second is, as a leader, you need to focus on the personal growth that you want for yourself and for the people who you work with. So I think leadership actions are dual focused, business growth as well as personal growth. I've tried to put my leadership learnings into six broad buckets, and I'll try and take you through that in a quick fashion. The first is I've experienced that growth happens only to those who are actually hungry to grow. If you are not personally hungry to grow, I don't think growth happens to people who are not. So first is we must take personal ownership. We must be personally owning the fact that we want to grow, we want our businesses to grow. The second is we must live by the philosophy that if it has to be, it is up to me, which is I can make it happen, and I have the resources and the ambition to make it happen. The third is as leaders, when we do a job or when we do something in college or we do something in work, we must aim to leave a mark. There must be a legacy, which is people must not remember you as a person, but must remember what you did as a leader and how they benefited from it. The second leadership lesson that I have is the best companions of a leader are courage and truth. It sounds very cliched. It sounds very, commonplace. But if you keep that at the center of all your decisions, we'll benefit. And I found that along building and growing businesses across the world and in India, asking the right questions are far more important than the right answers. Most people who you work with will be intelligent enough to find the right answer. But if you don't ask the right question, the answer is irrelevant. So asking the right question as the leader is far more important than giving the right answer. The second is confront the issue with honesty, humility, and courage. Many times, the issue does not get solved because we don't confront the issue. We are worried about what people will think about us. We're worried about what others will think about us, or we worry about the impact our decisions have on people. And hence, we don't confront the issue and we don't solve it. So it's extremely important as a leader to confront the issue at hand with all honesty, humility, and courage. And all three words are important. You must be honest with the issue. You must be humble enough to know that these issues impact people. As a result, people will get affected with the decisions you make. And most importantly, you must have the courage to make the right decisions. Uh, Across my career, I found that all decisions don't make everybody happy. But the fact of the matter is that you work for a business or you work for an institute or you work for your family at times. And every time you make a decision, you make it for the collective good. The third is, as a leader, you cannot delegate the aspect of thinking. You can't expect your boss to think for you, nor can you expect your subordinates to think for you. Thinking is your responsibility as a leader. So the next is you must have a very restless yet relentless focus on change. Uh, the world progresses or businesses progress only because they change. So as a leader, you must create a vision of growth. You must create an agenda of growth. As a leader, you must get people to agree to your agenda. One of the big problems I think all of us face in the world today is many leaders don't get people to agree to their agenda. As a result, even when there is progress, people say don't see progress because that is not what they signed up for. So if you're a leader, you create a growth vision, you create a growth agenda, getting your team, your people, your the people who matter to agree to that agenda is the most critical part of having an agenda. And the third, execute the change. If you agree with your team that this is the change we are going to make, execute the change and hold people accountable for change. Because what happens sometimes is that everybody agrees to the agenda, but then they are not held accountable. So once people agree to an agenda, it's very important to hold them accountable for that. Number four, be entrepreneurial. Work with what you have. Most importantly, our ambition must be equal to or greater than the resources available. We will never have enough resource. I mean, as a country, we don't have enough resource. As a company, I don't have enough resource. I need to work with the resources that are available to make it work. And this is why entrepreneurs are the best. Most entrepreneurs who create their own businesses don't have enough resource, but they make do with what they have to deliver the best result possible. Second, resource constraints, if you have resource constraints, or an increase in ambition is what drives the best of innovation. You'll find businesses which have less money produce the best results because they're constrained. When you're constrained, you're forced to think out of the box. You're forced to find alternative solutions. The most well-funded businesses or the most well-funded institutions do not necessarily produce the best results. I think the ones that work within the constraints they have produce the best results. The third is one of my favorites, which is fail early and fail cheap. Most of us don't want to take risk, whether it is with our careers, whether it is with product launches, whether it is with business. We always try and test and are risk averse. But if you fail early in the process, you actually fail cheap, which is you can learn from your mistakes, correct them, and go forward. So I truly believe in this, that you should fail early and fail cheap. Uh, Number five, leaders must always have a dual perspective. We must create what I call positive paranoia. Paranoia is normally a negative word. Positivity is a positive word. So creating a positive paranoia. If we are in business, we must look at the top and bottom end of the market. We must look at today's business and look at the future. We must look at what I call the short and the long term. We must look at individual and collective performance. We must look at how people are performing individually and how we perform as a team. We must look at growth and profit and do both. We must know what to retain and what to destroy and reinvent. So as you build companies, you want to retain what is good and reinvent what is not so good. So I think if you want to be a successful leader, having a dual perspective, which is what seemingly is contradictory today, but will be very valuable as you go forward. The last lesson is our personal confidence, and your personal confidence is critical. And I truly believe that each one of us and each one of you is more than what you think you are. Second, you need to be resilient. Life will be more failure than success. Life will have more downs than ups. So as you go through your life, the fact that you must be resilient and get up one more time than you fall is most critical. The third, have a point of view about today and have a point of view, most importantly, about the future. Because why are we all in business? Why are we all getting educated? Why are we doing all this hard work? It is for the future. If you're doing something for the future, you must have a personal point of view of the future, and your confidence that you will create the future is critical. And last but not the least, don't think that you are not capable. Don't hold yourself back. Most people tend to worry whether they will be good enough. But I think unless you try and you think that you're better than you actually are, you can't succeed. So I'll leave you with some thoughts, and these are not certainly not advice, but just some thoughts as I've done my journey. There are 5 key aspects as a leader. You need to learn, you need to lead, you need to have courage, you need to understand what success means, and you need to understand what failure means. The first is learn. I think you need to create opportunities for your team to learn. You need to challenge yourself as a leader to learn from your team. You need to listen to people and not hear, but actually listen and really do listen. You need to look, when you get successful, don't get complacent in success, but actually look for a new horizon, which is what is the next success that you will have. And I think very importantly in life to learn how to smile, because, if you don't enjoy what you do, every day is such a difficult day, but you smile and enjoy what you do, you actually learn a lot. Second, we must have courage to give feedback to people we work with. Feedback it's very easy to give good feedback, but it's very tough to give bad feedback. We must understand how difficult it is to get bad feedback. When our teacher or our boss tells us that we are not so good, that emotion is not an easy one. So when you tell somebody that they're not good and they need to improve, understand from their perspective that it's not easy to get tough feedback. 3, look for something you truly believe in. Have the courage to believe in something. Stand up for what you believe in. Look for something you believe in. Stand up for what you believe in. And last but not the least, stand up for the people you believe in. So you must find something you believe in. You must stand up to go against the tide when that is challenged. And most importantly, when you believe in people, stand up for them when they are in difficulty. And last but not the least, speak up for what you believe in. Most people and leaders, successful leaders, actually speak their mind. They actually say what they believe in. When you say what you believe in, people will actually see your vision and believe in it themselves. We need to lead ourselves every day. We need to lead our bosses or our superiors. We need to lead the people we work with. We must walk in front of our team. We must carry our teams when the going is rough. And when you win, you must let them stand in front. When you are the boss and you're the leader, success is automatically yours. Don't take the success and make it yours. Make it the success of your team. And most importantly, be consistent as a leader. People must understand that the person who they talk to on Monday is the same person that they talk to on Tuesday and the same person they talk to on Friday. When leaders are inconsistent with their behavior, people get very confused. People don't know what to do. So I think be consistent in your behavior. Some thoughts about success. Success is very collective. Make sure that when you're successful in life, you share that success with the people who work with you. Remember that success makes you deaf and be aware of that, because you'll find that people, when they get successful, start to become poor listeners. They think success is because of them, and that's when they start to fail. And most importantly, success is never final. When you've succeeded today, you must find another mountain to climb, another peak to scale. And so success is today, and tomorrow is another day, and you have to make it another journey. Failure is actually, for me, as important as success. Failure is a great teacher. We must learn from our failures and grow from our failures. But we must always prevent over diagnosis of a failure. What happens is, when we fail, we tend to sort of analyze, get paralyzed by that analysis, and forget that that failure is in the past and we have to move forward. So learn from failure, grow from failure, but don't over-diagnose failure. So a few words: as leaders, I think you must have moral courage. You must have willpower and resilience. Leadership is a long journey. You must build knowledge, because you can only be a leader if you're an expert in the subject. So build knowledge and take initiative. You must challenge every problem. You must have an appetite for growth. As a leader, you must be willing to live in a zone of discomfort, which is, comfort is the worst thing for a leader because it makes a leader complacent. So be willing to live in that edge and a zone of discomfort where you feel challenged every day. And as a leader, learn not to take things personally, because we as leaders have to grow, take our people with us, and succeed. We will fail many times, but we mustn't blame ourselves when we fail. Failure is part of life, is part of success, according to me, and we shouldn't take it personally. So I try to talk about 4 A's. Leaders must be agile. Leaders must have the right attitude. Leaders must be very action oriented. Leaders must be ambitious. So what I call the 4 A's of leadership: agility, right and positive attitude, bias for action, action oriented, and ambitious. These lead to what I call the 3 E's of leadership: leaders who are engaged, leaders who have energy, and leaders who are entrepreneurial, full of enterprise, right? So you must have the right attitude, you must have be agile, you must actually be engaged, full of energy, and full of enterprise. Finally, as a leader, it is all about people. It's about people, which are individuals and teams. As a leader, they need to see you, you need to be accessible, and most importantly, you need to be human. Because failure is probably what, when it happens to leaders, it is perfectly okay to be human and feel bad about it temporarily. But people want to see leaders who are human and are identify with them. Last, I leave you with a thought, which is something that I've always believed in, that in the journey of corporate life, in the journey of whatever each of you choose to do, try to do something and not become somebody. This was, said by one of the most famous political leaders of our era, which is Margaret Thatcher. She said, "Try to do something and not be someone." Because when you try to do something, you actually impact and make a change. When you try to be someone, you're not a true leader, and not all the things that I talked about. That's what I had in terms of slides, but I'm very happy to now answer any questions that you may have.
Vinod, could you briefly tell us failures that you have faced in your life? Because when I look at your whole track record, it's achievements all the way in terms of academics, as well as a blazing trail in your career. So it'll be interesting to know whether you have experienced failure.
Yeah, many times, I think. I mean, when you write a resume, you tend to write the good things that you've done and the achievements you have. But I think if you take my career, at every stage of my career, I've had my setbacks. I've done failed product launches. I've run companies. I ran the Chinese business of Colgate. Tough years. So yeah, I've had my fair share of failure. But I initially, it used to impact me a lot, especially when I was younger. I start to get more secure. and I don't take it that personally now. And age probably helps, and experience probably helps. But I think I've had more failure than I'd care to admit, but plenty of them. And in business, I try to. In my personal life, I try to make the right decisions because according to me, in business, failures are part of life. In personal life, the decisions you make can have long-lasting impact on the people you love. So that's where I think I've tried to be careful enough to make sure that I fail less. But even there, the way you bring up your children, the mistakes you make when you bring them up. The second child is brought up differently from the first one, but each one of these things for me are lessons to be learned through life.
Thank you. So I've got a question here from Anne.
Right.
I really liked the way you have used the oxymoron positive paranoia. Many times we beat ourselves down, and how can we deal with the failure effectively?
I think the most effective way to deal with failure is actually think that take parallels, right? I think for every 100 products that are launched in the fast-moving consumer goods industry, probably less than one succeeds. So there are more failures than there are successes. But the fact of the matter is that if you let failure get to you, there is no chance that you will succeed. Think of the upside of learning from failure. Right. So I have, as I said, this comes with time and age, but when I fail, I tend to think that I have to get up one more time than I've fallen. And that is probably the only reason that keeps me going. The word positive paranoia is, and I use it all the time in my job, which is I need to create a sense of paranoia that we are going to fail, right? Only when there is a sense that we are going to fail will we create the positive energy to succeed. So if you put those two words together, I say create positive paranoia to create that positive cycle, which actually then starts to become virtuous. People should come to work, at least in my organization, thinking somebody is going to be better than us today. And if we are not better than that somebody, we will actually become number two. And that is what I do all the time.
Thank you, Vinod. Faculty and girls, you can post your questions on the chat window so that we can take it up.
Vinod, this is Matthew here.
Yes, Matthew.
Yeah, I have a small.
Matthew,
because I work in the corporate, I am a little curious to know about more retail. Little about retail, online retailing, all those new changes which has happened, which are part of it. Because it is a very current thing. I'm asking a little about professional thing, what you have done.
So more used to be a part of the Aditya Birla Group. About a year and a half back, it was acquired by a private equity called Samara Capital, which owns 51% of the company, and 49% of the company is actually owned by Amazon. So we are a joint venture between Samara Capital and Amazon. We are now about a 6,000 crore company. We have two formats of stores. We've got large stores, which are what we call hypermarkets, which are about 30,000 square feet. We have about 30 of those. Then we've got supermarkets, which are small stores, and those are 2,500 square feet. We've got 700 of those. I think in another 3 to 4 years, the small stores, which are 700, will go to about 2,000. And the large stores, which are 30, will go to about 60. So that's our business. We are basically present in most states except the West and the center of India. So we're not present in MP, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, parts of most of Maharashtra. Otherwise, our states of strength are actually Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, and West Bengal. I mean, that's where we are really strong. Uh, Online, of course, is, I mean, all of us are online shoppers today in some way or the other. But today, about 20% of our grocery is actually shopped online, which is, since we are partners with Amazon, uh, if you are living in Bangalore today, for example, and you went on to Amazon Fresh, or you went on to Amazon.in, and you were shopping for grocery, that order actually comes to a more store, and an Amazon rider comes to the more store, picks it up, and delivers to your house. So that's what I call omni-channel shopping now, which is online to offline and offline to online. And I think COVID has really increased that behavior. And today, I would imagine that in 5 to 6 years' time, 50% of grocery shopping will actually be online. So it's very important to have an offline business and physical stores, but it's also very important to have an online business because that is where the consumer is moving for various reasons. One is convenience, the other is absolute lack of time. Of course, COVID is a different problem where people are scared to go to stores, but even without COVID, when this pandemic passes, I think consumers will do both on and offline shopping. Some categories have become largely online today. Mobile phones is a great example, where 70% of India's mobile phones now are sold online. Uh, Fruit and vegetable, not as yet, but even that is going online in a large. Do I answer your question, Matthew?
Yes.
So
Thank you. There are a few more questions in the chat box.
we have a few more questions. We've got what is your strategy to sustain success?
I think the single biggest strategy to sustain success is not to lose fact that you must be profitable as a business, right? I mean, and I'm a bit old school here. I'm not a big believer in businesses that lose money. Uh, if a business has to succeed, it has to produce profit. It has to produce dividend for the shareholder. Only when you produce profit do you have the money to invest in the future. The second strategy to succeed is to hire good people. And it's a cliche that they say that people are a business's biggest asset, but it's really true. If you have good people, they run a business well. So make sure that you keep a sharp eye on profitability, hire the right people, and I think third and most important is what I said about having a dual perspective in a business. You have to think about today, but you also have to think about the long term. How do you invest for the long term while making sure that you make profit in the short term? So keeping a dual perspective of leadership is critical if you want to succeed. Because businesses that don't think about tomorrow, when they reach tomorrow, they still have the tools of yesterday, so they will fail. So we have to think about tomorrow while managing for today. I think of running a business strategy as trying to drive a car in the rain and changing the wheels while you're driving it. And you have to do that all the time, which is think for tomorrow while running today.
So we have Cindy asking, which is I think what I asked in the beginning about what is your biggest failure. So I don't know if you want to really pinpoint on that and say it. Yeah. So what was your biggest failure? Is what she's asking.
Oh, I think my biggest failure was struggling to run a business in China. I mean, China is probably the most difficult business in the world to run for any company. Uh, I spent five years there, and my first 2 years, the business did extremely badly because I didn't understand the business enough. I was using a different toolkit in a completely different country. It took me probably 18 months to really orient myself, and those 18 months were hell because I was not doing well. I felt the business was sinking. But then once I got a hang of it and I learned from all the setbacks that I had, I think we had a few good years after that. So I would say the most difficult business to run, failed the most, but ended up successful because it took patience and effort and resilience to get back.
So we have Satika. Which moment in your life was the most challenging and memorable, and how were you able to face it?
Well, I think the most memorable moments of my life have been the positive moments, not necessarily all the negative ones. I tend to forget the negative ones fast. But I think the current moment is possibly the most challenging I've had in my career, which is, never in our lifetime have we seen a disease so difficult to manage, so much uncertainty. And my single biggest focus has been, how do I make sure that I can run the company profitability and yet keep all the jobs of people I can. So I would say I have not had it more difficult than I have it today. And what are we doing today? Uh, Very sharp focus on the business metrics, keeping the business alive, making sure we continue to expand our store network, right? Because when we expand our store network, we generate more revenue and profit to grow. And most importantly, keeping our employees and customers safe. This has been the biggest challenge that I've faced. We have 15,000 employees in our stores. Uh, we have something like 75 lakh people who walk into our stores every month. You can imagine the number of people who could possibly be infected. So how do we make sure that our stores are sanitized, our stores are safe? Most importantly, our employees are safe. And if our employees are safe, our customers will be safe. I think this is the biggest challenge that I have today. I wake up every morning thinking, uh, I hope none of my employees get sick. So to tell you, my team has done a good job. We've got 15,400 employees, of which so far we've only had 386 positive coronavirus cases, and we've lost only one person. So, we've kept our stores open every day through the pandemic. So I think most challenging, most exciting, and probably I'm waiting for this disease to go away so that we can return to normal.
Okay, we have thanks. We have Soumya. How do you overcome negativity?
I I would say I think the most important thing in overcoming negativity is to not think that you are the cause of the problem. If you're hardworking, if you've got the right intent, uh, and not take every little failure as a failure on your personal part, I think we will stay positive. The other is I found it very valuable to surround myself with positive people. Uh, you know, if you surround yourself with people who are positive, you tend to become more positive. So, A, don't take things personally. Two, surround yourself with positive people. And one way or the other, and this may sound a bit of uh, keeping yourself physically active makes you less negative. Uh, you generally find people who exercise, people who play some sport, people who walk outdoors are far more positive than people who sit inside a room. So I would say, surround yourself with people who are happy. Uh, don't take things negatively personally. And three, do some physical exercise. It's proven that if you do physical exercise, it generates the right hormones in your body to make you happier. And I try to practice all three.
Okay, thank you. We've got Divya. What are the most important traits to look for when hiring a new employee?
I would say it's good to look at a resume from an education perspective because it gives you an idea of how diligent and hardworking a person is. Uh, so I tend to look at grades in school and college because I think that's an important measure of how hardworking they are. I don't make that the only criterion, but I tend to say, let me see what the grades are. And if it is a more experienced person, I I look at the person's ability to actually analyze and make decisions, not overanalyze, but analyze and make decisions. So I look for analytical ability. I look for people who actually care for other people, and they make the best leaders. So analytical ability, a human touch, and evidence that the person is very hardworking. And evidence that a person is hardworking normally, if you're taking a new person, it's normally their school grades or college grades. If you're taking an experienced person, it's the kind of jobs they've done in the references. I mean, the last thing you want is you hire a person who's actually lazy. So a work ethic is most important.
Right. Sandhya says, for running a business, which one is more important, hard work? No. For running a business, which one is more important, hard work or smart work? Are both necessary, or is both necessary?
Both are necessary, unfortunately, but both are necessary. Both are necessary. I mean, I wish I could say if I have to make a choice between hard and smart, I think you have to. Hard work is a given, even if you're super smart, right? Even if you're super smart and don't work hard, you will not succeed. So I think hard work is table stakes and the minimum you need. And then working smart gets you ahead of the other people who work hard. So you can't choose between the two. Unfortunately,
Both are important.
Both are important. Or I would say, fortunately, both are important, which is why, if you work hard, you will succeed, according to me.
Tirumurthy says, the customers are seeking more fantasy rather than quality in any goods. In this circumstance, how can we become a successful seller?
Yeah, I think I tend to believe that customers still seek quality, and I focus on quality in my business, irrespective of where it is. Yes, the word fantasy is that, advertising is created, or people have created this image of products that are actually better than they actually are, which I don't think is long-term sustainable, right? If you take great products, like take the iPhone, or the product itself is so good. It isn't just advertising. So I think good products of high quality, added to that, the fantasy of using great products and the imagery is important. I don't think you can have bad products which will sustain in the long term. No, I think quality of products is the minimum. Is the minimum.
Thank you. We've Sandhya. Saranya, how do you handle disagreements with co-workers?
The direct answer to that is you have to have the courage to surface the disagreement. By putting it under the carpet, the disagreement doesn't go away. Now, having said that, depending on the kind of person you're dealing with, you need the tact and ability. Because if the goal is to actually solve the disagreement, it's quite useful to actually see the kind of person and the temperament of the person you're dealing with. And your tactic will completely depend on the temperament of the person. If the person is one who doesn't take feedback, who thinks, who doesn't like criticism, you have to find the right human solution for that. But first and foremost, putting the disagreement on the table is so critical. And that is where I think most disagreements don't get resolved, because we never put the disagreement on the table. Human beings generally are conflict averse, as a result of which, the conflict never gets surfaced. Nobody thinks there's a disagreement. So putting it on the table and then talking about it. Nothing is unresolvable if you talk about it.
Right, it's very true. Deepa says, hi, sir. Happy evening, sir. And who is your favorite leader and why?
I mean, if I look at, in terms of business leaders, I think my single most, I've admired Steve Jobs of Apple the most. No reason. If you think of smartphones as the invention, and the iPhone and Apple invented the smartphone, it has changed the way the world lives, right? 20 years ago, we all had phones. Mobile phones were just inventions where we took a phone from a desk and put it in our pocket. That was one invention. But smartphones came. Today, imagine a life without a phone. So I think it has its negatives, but I think Steve Jobs inventing and then marketing the Apple iPhone was probably one of the best business cases I've had. On on a non-business case, I think, I have admired a lot of leaders, but if you take Indian leaders, I admired Manmohan Singh when he was a finance minister in 1992. I think, much has been said about him as a prime minister, but he was the most progressive finance minister probably in the world in the last 50 years. He took a country which was slow, bureaucratic. He opened up the country in 1991. We would not be India and where we are if not for Dr. Manmohan Singh's decisions in 1992. So I think I admire him tremendously. As I also have tremendous respect for his character, but I think true political business leader of the 90s in India.
Right. Cindy again. Are you scared to lose your business?
Always. And that's what keeps me, going, because I always worry that some competitor will do better than me. And that is the single biggest motivation that I have to make sure that I don't let that person go ahead. So I don't lose sleep over it, but I am, I have a healthy amount of paranoia in my bloodstream to make sure that I'm focused on it.
I have a question, Mindy. Can you tell us briefly what it was like moving during the pandemic? That's if you have the time. Moving during the pandemic, here, shifting home, shifting job, shifting everything, and moving into India to fund this fund. What was it like?
So I think the first thing is, some decisions get made without knowing that this is what is going to happen. So, I moved back to India at the end of March. The pandemic was just unfolding, if I can say, right? If somebody had asked me in March, do you think that this pandemic will take 1.5 years to go away or 1 year to go away, I would have said no. So the advantage of making that decision was I didn't know where the world is going. But having made that decision, we moved family, I moved jobs, I moved back to India, which I had not lived in for 20 years. It has been, I would say, easier than I would have thought it to be. But most importantly, I think the difficult part was, coming to a country and not being able to go out, not being able to do things physically. And, it took us a long time to settle back because of that. But then, the positive part lots of difficult parts in the pandemic, but the most positive part has been we've been together as a family for the first time in 15 years because we are all under one roof. We are all working from home. So pluses and minuses, but if you ask me to go back to March and say, will you do this again? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, because we were coming back to India anyway. If I had not moved back in March, then I would not have been physically able to come till July. So far so good. It's turned out all right. But I don't think anybody in the world thought the pandemic will be what it will be when it started.
Was chemical engineering your choice, or was it something that you had to do and pick up?
Certainly not my choice. If you remember at that point in time, it was all competitive exam and ranks. And my first choice was to actually do electronics. I didn't make the grade for it. So I got chemical engineering, and I didn't enjoy engineering at all, honestly. Which is why I didn't pursue it as a career. I went to the IIM because I wanted to do something different. So I was quite pleased to get out of engineering. I've never worked as an engineer for one day. When I went to the IIM, I started to enjoy courses in sales, marketing, and then I got an opportunity to join, I think, which even today is probably one of the world's finest companies, which is Unilever, Hindustan Lever those days. So the short answer is no. I don't think I actively put chemical engineering as my first choice. I just happened. That's all I got in a way. But the second step of my education, I chose with care. I chose what I wanted to do.
So if you had to really start your career and life all over again, what stream of what would be your stream of interest? Where would you go?
If I had to start today, I mean, with the options that are available today, I certainly would have done something in digital marketing. Uh, I mean, such words didn't exist those days. So if you go back, if I went back, if I could start all over again in 1983, I probably would have liked to have a career in advertising. But if you think of the 80s, when you passed out of school, if you had good marks, you either became a doctor or you became an engineer, or at least that's what your parents thought you should do. But I don't think that's restrictive today. Today, I think there's so many options. If I had to come out of school today, I think I would pursue a career in digital advertising and marketing because it really intrigues me and interests me.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Any other questions? You can put your questions. Okay. There are more questions. Yeah. Tell me, Wendy, when you're running out of time, okay, what is the most difficult part of being a leader?
I think the most difficult part of being a leader is when you have to cut jobs. I've had to do that twice in my career where, because as a leader, your business doesn't perform. And when your business doesn't perform, we have to actually cut jobs. I mean, that is very hard. For two reasons, it's hard. A is if you have to cut jobs as a leader, it is primarily your fault that the jobs are getting cut. Because if you had performed as a leader, the jobs would not have got cut. So that's hard. And two is very hard to look somebody in the eye and say, you don't have a job tomorrow. And I always struggle with that moment. I've had to do it many times, and I suppose that journey will always exist where you have to tell somebody that he doesn't have a job. That probably is the toughest part of my job. I've also had to tell people who don't perform to go. That time I don't struggle as much because when a person doesn't perform and you tell them that they have to go, I think it's the person's fault because you gave them an opportunity, they didn't perform. But for no fault of people, when jobs get lost, it feels really bad. It feels really bad.
Thank you. Okay, I think this is almost a repeat. Good evening. Who is your role model? This is from Chitra Devi. Who is your role model?
In business, I think I said, I don't think there's anybody I admire more than Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Okay. Masni Priya asks you how to train your mind to face the challenges in our life.
I don't pretend to think that I've faced so many challenges, but I train my mind by being disciplined about solution making. I tend not to get bogged down by the problem itself. I try and say, if there's a problem, I break up a problem, I try and find a solution. I look for experts to help me because most problems, at least in business, are very solvable. They may take time, they may take effort, but they're not insurmountable problems. It's not like if you can solve the problem of this COVID pandemic by producing a vaccine, I think most problems in the world are solvable. So the best way to face a challenge is actually to try and solve the problem and not to pretend that you have all the solutions. I think asking for help, most of us hesitate to ask people for help because people will think that we are not strong and we are weak. But asking for help is probably the best way to face challenges.
That's true. I think we always first we think the other person would think that we're weak if we ask, and we should be knowing everything. So it's a great thing. Yeah, we should be asking. True. How do we train our minds to face challenges in our life?
I would say that, I mean, practice is the best training, right? When the challenges come, don't run away from them. Try and fix them, try and solve them, overcome them. Then the next challenge will seem that much easier. So, courage as a leader is about facing up to the problem. So I say, solving the challenges can only be done if you actually acknowledge it, face it, move forward, solve it. Then that practice then makes you. I think leadership is like a muscle. You have to exercise it and make it stronger. If you don't exercise it, you'll be a weak leader.
True. True. And ask a question. Sometimes a company gets stuck between quantity and quality. How difficult is it to strike a balance between the two?
So, and this is a good question because I'm asked this inside the company all the time. And I say, quantity is not what we strive for, quality is what we strive for. If you become the best business, you will automatically become the largest business, right? You can't become the largest business by being a bad quality, non-customer focused business. So being obsessed by your customer, solving her problems will make us the best business, and that will automatically solve the quantity problem, right? So don't try solve the quantity problem by solving the quantity problem, solve the quality problem.
Okay, we've got another question. Is it easy to handle both your family and your work and business?
No, I would say that it's not easy at all. You know, there are lots of sacrifices along the way. My wife and me have been married 29 years. We've moved 17 times. Our children have been educated. My elder daughter studied in 7 schools. So not easy at all. But then the positives are we've lived across the world. We've seen different cultures. They've been educated in lovely schools. So, it depends on what you define as success and the sacrifices you're willing to work. I think some of the things are when you move so much across the world, 2 careers become very difficult. One career takes precedence. All these are what I call the struggles of a person who wants to build a career out internationally. But I think people are getting better at doing it now, much better at doing it now.
Thank you, Wendy. That was interesting. Any more questions? So I think we've got a lot of lessons that we can all take back and think over, and imbibe in our lives and in our careers ahead of us. It's been a really interesting insight into your journey. And thank you for taking time out to be with us. I'm going to ask Matthew, our CEO now, to do the vote of thanks. Matthew?
Yeah. Mr. Vinod, today's talk was very insightful. In fact, it was really like walking the talk with a very successful chief executive. We will be archiving it. We recorded this, and it will be used by the students as well as the faculty for further references. They can listen to it. That we normally do.
Sure.
All of us here from Koshi, Liz, me, and rest of the people, as well as the principals of the 3 institutes, the faculty, and all other students who are listening to this. A big thank you from all of us for finding time to come and talk to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.